Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of The First Ones to Die. I am Jonathan. I'm here with Jerome and Alex. How are you doing? I'll first start with Alex. How are you doing?
I am exhausted, but not bad. uh, it's been like a crazy bit of a week, but nothing too much. So it's been not bad, just
That's
tiring.
tiring. Yeah, I feel you on that. I definitely feel you. Jerome, how are you doing?
I got Canada Dry. That's how I'm doing.
Canada Dry. We are
Canada
You
Dry
hashtag
had to
drinking
put
not
that
game.
in there. Yeah,
sponsored,
he had to put that in there.
but
Listen,
Canada Dry, if you want to hit us up, I mean, by all means,
ain't nobody
nobody's
else
stopping you.
sponsoring you. All right, we could do a good job.
Okay, now we just lost
I'm
the
sure.
sponsorship.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
sure they have other.
Name one.
Anyway,
Name them.
We are less than a minute in and we've already insulted a major corporation, major
Anyway,
in
brand.
all fairness, Jerome insulted the major corporation. Jerome, which he can be easily replaced if necessary.
please. All right, I am the soul of this this podcast. Jonathan is the brain. Alex is the heart. All right, all three, and together we make Captain Planet. The point is.
How I feel about being called the heart.
Is this a democracy? Can we take a vote?
Well, you don't want to be the
I don't
brain,
want to be the
Jonathan?
heart. Who wants to be the heart? That's just weak sauce.
What would you rather be, Alex?
I don't know, just anything but the
What
heart.
do you want to be, the tibia? Is that what you want to be, Alex? Huh? You want to be the basal ganglia of this podcast? I know a lot of body parts.
Why do you know so many body parts? It's disturbing.
What was the last one you just said? I've never
Basal
heard that.
ganglia.
What is that? Where
I
is
forget
that?
what it is, but I know it's in the brain, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor, Jonathan, all right? I know the terms. I don't know where they go.
If you know a body part that's supposed to be in the brain, shouldn't you be the brain?
No.
What were you again?
I'm the soul. The soul, baby.
I feel like heart and soul, aren't they the same thing?
No. You can have heart, but if you ain't got soul, you can't make music.
This is
I don't know what I'm
We
talking
are not
about. Listen,
making
I'm
music. We're making a
Anyway,
podcast.
I'm
hey.
exhausted, all right? I'm just telling.
So what are we
telling you
doing
like I am.
today,
Like,
Jonathan?
Okay, anyway, back to the topic at hand. First, before I say that, I just want to let everyone know, thank you to all of our listeners. If you want to hit that, whatever platform you're listening to, hit that like button, those 5 stars, give us a review. We very much appreciate it as, a growing, ever growing podcast. We want to expand our audience as much as possible. So give us some a like or whatever the kids call
Subscribe.
it. Yeah, subscribe. Um
Whatever the
and with
kids
that being said, let's get to the thing that you probably clicked on this podcast for.
You read
It
the
is
title.
our
You knew what was
review
coming.
of Malcolm. I didn't hear that, Jerome. I'll keep going. Our review of Malcolm and Marie, the movie that just dropped on Netflix, directed by Sam Levinson, starring Zendaya and John David Washington. Just those two. A good 1 hour and 46 minutes, drama, romance, a lot of drama. Okay. IMDb describes it as a director and his girlfriend's relationship is tested after they return home from his movie premiere and await critics' responses. So, how we like to do it on The First Ones to Die, we like to first, talk about our general thoughts, non spoilers, and then we talk in depth and get into spoiler territory in depth and get into spoiler territory. We'll give you a warning, so if you want to click off when we dive into the spoilers, in case you haven't seen it yet. So let's start. Jerome, you watched this movie, I'm assuming fairly recently since it just came out.
I did.
What are your overall thoughts?
Overall thoughts is for me it's a mixed bag because I definitely see like it. This movie is an interesting thing because it's made during COVID times. Like the height of the COVID quarantine, stuff like that, and so it has that going for it as something that came out of adversity, I guess. And on paper, this movie seems very interesting. And bottle film, but a bottle drama. You know, it's not like a sci-fi epic or anything like that. Like it's two people having a dramatic conversation. And I enjoy movies like Dinner with Andre, and I enjoy Sam Levinson's Euphoria special episodes he's been doing. The one in particular with Rue is a conversation. It's a bottle episode that takes place at one location where two characters just talk to each other, and that's like the whole episode. So I enjoy that content. However, I feel like this movie is it starts very strong. It has some great performances in the very beginning. But as for me personally, as the movie continues, it seems like the script seems starts to lose steam. And because the script's losing steam, it seems like the performances are losing steam because they're kind of going through the motions at this point. Um, and I don't know if that's because this to me overall this feels like something that's like an on a whim idea that while it is well written, it isn't well executed. Like of like, you know what, I want to make a movie during COVID. Let's just let's just do that. So that's just, you know, my opinions. I know that's not very clear, but it's like that's as clear as I can get without giving any spoilers away.
Okay, and how about you, Alex?
Oh, I hated it. Simple as that. I didn't like it. I think you're
Don't
right.
mince words.
The premise was good. The idea was good. The actors are great. I love Zendaya so much. But I found it boring, and it was kind of like a lot of this could have been avoided, and it just looks like two people who have a crappy relationship together, and it's just like, well, I see a lot of this already on my normal shows. I don't have to watch an hour, like 40 minutes of it. So I think again, it was a great idea, and like there is that whole plot of kind of being trapped in one room with a person and not being able to leave. So you're either having to sit in this uncomfortable silence or hash out your issues. So that is like often a common plot in, or yeah, I guess plot in movies and things. But I just think the way it was executed in this film made it seem more like they were kind of, it was just they were both kind of being annoying and over dramatic for the characters they were trying to represent. It just felt like this is a really just a bad relationship. So
And for my thoughts, I very much agree with none of you because I loved this movie.
Yeah, I assumed that.
I assumed it with the way you whipped your head back.
You were you were very subtle about how much you
Yeah,
disagree.
you literally almost fell out of your chair when I said I hated it. But go, tell us why you loved it.
Yes. So going into it, I was very excited about this. As listeners may know, I talked about this in our episode with Jasmine, our 2021 expectations. This was one of the movies that I was very excited about. And, you know, for my part, good reason, because, you know, Zendaya, watching her like career growth has just been awesome. Been a fan for a long time. And then John David Washington, you know, I've only seen him in Black Klansman, but I've been meaning to watch Tenet. Haven't seen that, but very excited to see that, and just very excited to see his, you know, career start to blossom as well. So with these two, you know, high profile, high uh, their careers are both blossoming at the same time, and they're both starring in this movie together. That made me excited as well, and the fact that it was written by Sam Levinson, who writes and directs Euphoria. It just made me pumped for this movie, and in watching it during the movie, I felt at some points that I was watching a play because, you know, it takes place in one location. It's very dialogue heavy, very emotional. I can 100% see this translating to stage. And even though it's not like there are a whole bunch of twists and turns in the movie. I felt like I was just emotionally captivated by Zendaya and John David Washington's performances. And that's something that I need to happen in a movie that only stars two people and is only in one location and is about their relationship and how toxic it really is. And, there were like moments that I didn't expect, really, not in a way of like, oh my gosh, this is a huge twist, but like from the characters themselves, acting wise and like emotional wise. So I I was all in on it. So I'm excited to dive into and dissect this entire movie. Um, yeah. With that being said, should we end our non-spoiler section here and get into
I think,
spoilers?
yeah, with this type of movie, we can only do spoilers.
Yes,
There's
I
nothing we can
agree.
say in
Well,
vague.
it's very
Oh, it was
minimal
this
compared
character.
to
It was
yeah.
possibly this character. No, there's two.
Well, I say minimal because compared to every other movie we've done so far on this podcast, every other movie is not this bare bones where it's one location, two characters, nothing but dialogue. There's no
Yeah.
action. There's no like as far as like physical action. There is no other thing happening like a mystery or a plot. It's two people in a relationship talking. That's it. Like so it's kind of hard to review this type of movie without talking about some of the dialogue pieces, some of the things they touch on, all that stuff.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. Jerome, let's go back to you, and then I guess we can just open up the conversation here. So you said you were kind of mixed on it. Would you lean more towards having an unfavorable opinion on it or having a favorable opinion on
I think I lean more on having an unfavorable opinion on it. Only because I recognize that the performances are pretty decent. Zendaya and John David Washington do a great job in their respective roles. And also the cinematography is really cool. It's really beautiful. And shout out to Sam Levinson for which it's not all him because DP makes the film just as much, but nonetheless, shout out to both of them for being able to light black people, especially a dark skinned man, in black and white. Because I've seen way too many movies that they're like, we're going to do black and white with black people. And they don't understand that black people in black and white, you have to have a specific look for your film. You have to light them a certain way, or they just get lost in the shadows. So shout outs to him. I think he did a great job, especially when John David Washington's outside in the dark. You can still see his outline. You can still see his frame. You still know it's him.
I
That
think,
was
yeah,
really
that's a
cool.
good point too, and also because they are both such different shades. She's such a lighter shade because she is mixed.
Mhm.
Um, Being able to capture them both in the same frame with the lighting must have been trickier than they probably thought it would be. But they actually, yeah, you're right, they did that really well. There's never too much lighting on one person or another because
Mhm.
you can see that. You're right. In older films, I like to watch a lot of films from like the 1920s and the 10s when they were still black and white, and you can see that even when they did it with certain white people, the lighting was too much and it had this like light glare across their forehead every single time. So the fact that they could get somebody, two people of such different shades, well lit in a black and
Mhm.
white film is, yeah, actually I never thought about that. That's really well done.
it. Why do you think they did shoot it in black and white?
I think it was just to kind of be stylistic. You're already dealing with a movie that's very minimal in execution. You kind of want it to stand out. Like you don't want it to just be like like you don't want it to feel like I would assume he didn't want it to feel like a student film, like something someone just shot in their house.
Or like Marriage
I don't know.
Story
A lot
Part
of student
Two?
films have like a
Well,
black and white vibe to them. I think it.
yeah.
I think it has to do with it really just because like a lot of movies that try to play that minimalistic game will
Hmm.
use color as metaphors. They'll use a lot of visual aid and stuff like that, little bits here and there. But with black and white, you're really focused either on the dialogue or the what the person has to be doing or how their body language is. You can't be like, oh, she changed from like a gold dress to a red dress. You're seeing her mood change with the colors of her outfits, something like that, which has been shown,
Mm.
in other film. This is solely just it's them, it's their conversation. You're more focused on what the characters are doing and saying rather than, their outfits to the surroundings. It's a really focus centered on the actors.
And also maybe if we want to get into like the metaphoricalness of it, maybe, it's like black and white, night and day. These people are two completely different people.
Hmm.
Maybe that can be one of the reasons that, you know, he
But
decided to shoot it on black and white.
but I just, that being said, so I recognize there's good in this movie. There is. My problem is that it all does not blend together with the sum of its good and bad parts. Because John David Washington and Zendaya, while they are good actors, they are not good together. They do not seem like a relationship. They seem like one really good actor doing another scene with another really good actor. But it doesn't, at no point did I ever feel like they really had actual chemistry. Like, oh yeah, no, like they totally are in a relationship and they're having a fight. I feel like I'm watching a person who's got a really good script. They read through it and they're like, okay, I'm gonna do it like this. And another person who got the same script but the opposite side, and they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna read it like this. And they came to that set and performed their scene. And that I think takes away from a lot of the weight and gravitas of this script because they don't have chemistry. If I don't already buy them as a relationship, I'm just watching two people yell at each other. I'm not watching a relationship more or less, not even really crumble, because at the end of the film they don't break up or anything. But I'm not watching a relationship in
Why
tension.
was I about to say spoiler alert? Thanks for spoiling. No, but we're in the spoiler section.
But and then the other major thing for me personally is, and I feel like I watched the Double Toasted podcast, their recordings and stuff, and when they said a joke, they were like, "This movie is mistitled. It shouldn't be called Malcolm and Marie. It should be called And Another Thing," because that is the entire script of this movie. Is that they'll fight, then they'll start making out, and then they'll be like, you know what? Matter of fact, and I'm just like, wait, what is happening? You are the most bipolar like relationship I've ever seen in my life. But it's because the movie has to keep going. And I agree with you, Alex, that like this movie is way too long for that to be a conversation, especially once we hit near the end where we get to the meat and potatoes of, okay, Marie, what are you so mad about? You didn't, why didn't you cast me? Why, like, we start hitting points that feels like things that if you had said that earlier, this conversation would have been over. But because
I
you've been,
think if they hadn't had those like little breaks where they made out and the argument stayed steady, it would feel less of a time. But it feels like they were purposely taking breaks, and it's like, wait, have you never been in an argument with your? No, you guys just kind of scream and shout, and then like,
yeah,
yeah, you might come back together, but you're not gonna make out in the middle.
So what I liked about that though, and I figured that this would be, the premise of the movie when I heard that, it was just them two and taking place in one spot and that they're a couple who fights a lot, is that there would be a lot of moments where they're, fighting and makeup, fight and makeup. And I feel like that brought out the realness in a lot of relationships in that, it's not just fight and you don't talk to the other person for however long. You might fight and then think you're cool with the other person, but then they say something that triggers another fight, and then the pattern starts again. But what I really liked about it is that no two fights were the same. The first fight was like very passive aggressive. There was another fight that was just a screaming match. There was another fight where she was crying and he was being a little like of a d-bag. There was another fight where
When
they
he
were
called
kind
her
of like roasting.
delusional.
Yeah. There was another fight where they were just like roasting each other, so it wasn't they were having the same argument over and over again. They were having like fights that would evolve based on the fight that they had previously, and they would try a different tactic in order to get their point across.
But that's the whole thing. It was the same fight. They were doing nothing but belittling each other. He was kind of mocking her mental health state, and she was kind of belittling his career in a way, and then it all just comes down to, well, why didn't you cast me? Which is like the most anticlimactic, ending ever. It's all about like that. It's like, is that it? Is that really your problem?
Oh,
Is this why everything started the way it was? Because you didn't get to act in his films?
Well,
Like,
I said
I,
that, but I did realize that because when she has that ending monologue where she says, I just wanted you to say thank you. And I get where she's coming from, like the character. I understand what the speech was, and it was very beautiful. I love the way it was
that's,
written.
I will give.
It just was one of those things though where I'm like, because and this is why I thought it was all the same fight, is because they and this is how the dialogue's written, is that they reference other moments that they've said before in the same argument. So it's the same argument, but the way that Sam Levinson writes the dialogue is that it always like they have pauses, but then this moment will come back and be referenced again, but in a different perspective. And that's
Well,
cool.
yeah, because they never solved anything.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that they're bringing it back. Nothing was ever resolved. They argued, they stopped, but they never finished the argument. So of course it's going to come back. I mean, anytime you have an argument with somebody, unless there's a conclusion or resolved, it's always going to come back. I mean,
so
that's not just relationship. That's with like friends and family too.
right. So back to your point about Alex, about the why didn't you cast me? That was her whole like that was the thing in the end, the kicker
That
essentially.
felt like but like the thank you part, yeah, that one I more understand because he did take parts of her past and put it into the movie and everything like that, and it's like she has shown to be his emotional support during all this, especially during a time where he's waiting for like the critics, and there's a moment of like the self pity where he's like, oh yeah, the critics kind of can take an assessment of one's identity and criticize the movie as well, and he's like, that's not fair, but it also feels like self pity in a way because it's like, well, my personal life. Well, yeah, no, your personal life is involved because you brought it into the movie. You can't self pity and then be worried about what the critics say about your personal life connected to the movie when you did it yourself. And she's
Yeah.
showing some support there, and other times she's just like, no, you brought my personal life into this movie too. So
Yeah.
that's another
Well,
reason
the
she's critical of it.
the reason why I liked the you didn't cast, why didn't you cast me? Um when she said that, I was like, oh yes, that's what I, because throughout the movie, throughout the movie, you know, they were talking as if, she was a washed up actress who, you know, tried to work in Hollywood, but it and maybe was like had a moderate amount of success at one point, but then it never really amounted to anything. And I'm here thinking, okay, you're super young, you're super young, you look like an actress, and um you're not married, your boyfriend is a director. Why are we acting like, you couldn't be cast in one of his future projects, or whatever? And then when she said, why didn't you cast me, I was reminded of that, and I was like, okay, maybe she has been holding this in for a long time, and it's one of those unspoken things that she just brings up because she's like finally had enough of it, and that's what she wants to get across in the movie. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but
I get
I
what you
like
mean.
that point because
Another thing.
yeah, I did like the why didn't you cast me, because you know I felt like it gave reason to a lot of the things that she was saying throughout the movie.
I think it's one of those things though where I think, and it's why I think this movie doesn't hit, because a lot of people have compared it to like Marriage Story, but I think it doesn't hit as well as Marriage Story did, because Marriage Story gives you a full context of what's going on before you even get into like the meat and potatoes of the arguments and all that stuff. Like we
Oh, give me
know.
meat and potatoes all day.
Well, I'm just saying, you get Scarlett Johansson. We know where she comes from. We know where Adam Driver comes from. We
I
know
didn't
why
like
this
that movie either.
relationship is crumbling. Even still, like we have context for what this relationship is to understand why it's falling apart. And with Malcolm and Marie, we don't know anything because we've never met these people before tonight when they're having this argument. So we don't know all of this stuff about Malcolm, about Marie, about whatever. So it's like we have to take a lot at face value without understanding why. And I think I like, and I say that not as so much a criticism, but rather like why I think, because I took to the internet because I was like, you know what, I'm not really feeling this movie, but maybe I'm wrong.
To the internet.
Maybe I'm missing something. So I took to like the internet to like to watch YouTube videos, like YouTube reviews from other reviewers and stuff like that. What do you guys think? What is the world saying? And the
Oh, I
consensus
thought you were talking to us.
has ranged no, no, but the consensus has ranged from, oh, I really loved it, to people who are like me, who are just like, I'm kind of in the middle. Like I like some things, but I'm like everything, to people like Alex, who are just like, this was boring and this was like a waste of time. So it's like I couldn't get a good gauge on it. And I think the reason the movie is so divisive is because it's very unclear. If you're into dialogue, especially if you're into theater, this is right up your alley. Like this
Well, see,
feels
that's the
like a
thing is,
theater
I'm
film.
into theater. I love theater. I do go see a lot of plays and movies that have been turned into plays. My whole issue is just I didn't like the breaks they weirdly took in. I think they just stretched it out longer than it should have been. I think this movie would have been wonderful, maybe 60 minutes, maybe just under that. I think it would have done really well like that. May had a strong like argument, the two of them. Marriage Story, I didn't like it. I didn't think they were a good couple either. I didn't think they had
Well, that's
really.
why they were getting a divorce. Like
Well,
that was
no,
them.
no, no.
Like
I
they
meant
were
like
breaking up.
they didn't give me. They didn't give me that vibe that like yeah they were once a happy couple. Now they're just angry because well I won't say why they were so angry with each other. In case anybody hasn't seen it, it
Mhm.
just felt like no, you guys should have never been together. And this one, I think you were more so right. It's just they didn't have that chemistry. For
I
people who kept stopping fights to make out or almost have this weird forgiveness in the middle, it didn't seem real or plausible, especially with the body language that Zendaya had during or Marie had during the film, where she had this coldness to her because she was angry for the lack of appreciation, the lack of acknowledgement that she was feeling. And he was so intertwined with his own mind and then kind of gaslighting her at some points, but other times he was like, look, I am anxious, I'm waiting for these critics, I'm waiting for them to critique me and everything. And it's kind of like you're both on a different plane right now. And I do know that is how sometimes arguments begin, because one's here, and then all of a sudden it all just comes crashing in the middle. But just the feel of if they had a real relationship beforehand wasn't there. And I don't know if maybe it's because we do lack the context or something. But I think maybe Zendaya with another actor would have been better if I had to replace one, just because I like Zendaya so much.
so um I 100% agree that this is a toxic couple. They are boyfriend and girlfriend. They are not married by the
No.
government. They should not be together at all.
I mean, even if they were, they should probably.
Well,
Yes,
because especially because
exactly.
of the way it made me laugh when she was mad at Malcolm for the way he fights. She's like, "You just take it too far," and I'm just like, I know how that feels because I used, especially when I was a kid, I used to be like that when I would get in arguments with people. I'm like, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to destroy you. Don't you ever in your life challenge me. It's like, but I had to learn. It's like, look, it's one thing to argue. It's another thing
Okay,
to like
reminder not to
purposefully.
bring up my personal trauma,
Right.
Oh
Jerome.
no,
You will
yeah,
use it
no,
against
I'm the
me.
exact same way. I will, if you like piss me off enough, I will go ahead and go for the jugular. That's a real
It's
problem, because also like it's also a different fighting for me, because Jonathan, you have a sister, but I highly doubt both of you actually have sisters.
Mhm.
When two sisters fight, it gets dark, man. You will go for every insecurity the other person has. You will find a way to tear them down. And it's always about some stupid reason that started the fight. And with like me and my sister, we've done that. We've done that point where we have made each other straight up cry. We'll sit in silence for like a good 5 minutes, and then the other person's like, "You want to go get food?" And they're like, "Yeah, fine, let's go get food. You're paying though." And he's like, "Fine." And then that's it. We moved on. Argument was dealt with. But yeah, having sisters, you will go deeper than you should have ever. You think you were a bad person. You think you were bad in arguments. You should see when two sisters fight. It is it is cruel. And I had to learn not to do that with normal people because that's how you end.
That's how you lose friends.
That's how you lose friends. You can't fight like a sibling with friends.
When Malcolm in the movie brought up, her drug abuse, like against her, and her harming herself, and I could snap you like a twig, like that's not something you should ever say to
straight up
a
threatening
woman, to anyone. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, that's the point where I was like, okay, I'm a little bit more on Marie's side. I didn't really want to take sides because I'm like, this is a couple who was fighting, and
I took both. I bounced between the two because I see Marie's point in that Malcolm is very he can be selfish, and I understand that because as a creative and especially a filmmaker, I've seen that selfishness as a creative and an artist,
and so from the first like 5 minutes of the movie when he's talking, when he's literally just talking for 5 minutes.
He's having a whole conversation with himself.
In all fairness, Marie just tried not to like fight. She says like, look, nothing productive is going to happen, or nothing productive is going to be said tonight. So like, let's not.
But see, that's the thing. That's why I was also against Marie a couple of times. Cause I'm like, you're also passive aggressive and incredibly insecure. And you're taking away from him. You'll be happy to take away from him a moment that he's excited about because you don't feel like you're a part of it. And so it's like the two of them, both of their attitudes make them terrible for each other.
Yeah, no, they're both just terrible, toxic characters written. Yeah, I understood this scene, but I didn't get why it needed to be filmed this way. When he's eating the macaroni and cheese, I get it. He's watching down the hallway to see what she's doing, and it's kind of this whole like controlling thing, and like, what is she doing in the other room? I need to know. But why is he eating macaroni and cheese and then just flipping his tie over? That was like a whole weird thing.
Well, he doesn't want to get mac and cheese on his tie. That's the thing.
And so
it's fine to get it on the white shirt, but not the black tie.
Well, the tie can, exactly, logistics. All right, it's a man thing. Whatever.
Just wondering why y'all flipping ties.
When I was watching that scene, I didn't realize at first that she was making mac and cheese. I thought she was making something a lot more elaborate. And then when I saw that it was mac and cheese with, the Malcom Marie title on it, I was like, oh, that's it. I think it was just because, I don't really know why they chose mac and cheese, but I think it was just because it was basic logistically. Like when you come home from a long event and you don't want to make a whole meal, you just pop the box mac and cheese in there, and there you go. So I think
it's a form of like comfort food too, because you're like,
that as well.
Whether you're having a bad night or a good night, mac and cheese is just something nice to always have.
See, this is why I couldn't have been Marie, though, because that would have been an argument in and of itself. And she's like, well, that's why I made your ungrateful behind some mac and cheese. Made me some mac and cheese. You act like you had got the Velveeta in there. All right. You made some blue box special Kraft mac and cheese. 5-year-olds could make that mac and cheese.
And yet your ass didn't make any, did you?
I don't give a damn.
You couldn't make it, could you?
Exactly.
No. Stand over while she was cooking and just complain over and over.
You're proving Marie's point right now.
You literally, she made even a small,
like you made a gourmet meal.
She made an effort though. She made an effort He didn't. Instead, he just sat at the table, glaring down the hallway with his tie flipped over his shoulder.
I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying don't come out here and act like Kraft mac and cheese is filet mignon
Well, next
and act like I'm
time-
just gonna sit here and take it. I'm not
Next
gonna
time
take
y'all
that.
get nothing. How about that?
I'll be
That's how
more
it's
than
gonna
happy
work.
to make my own Kraft mac and cheese. All right,
When you make it the first time, we'll see.
I
Alex, we ain't in a relationship. Why are we?
Because I'm proving your point. Proving Marie's point.
I really liked the part where Marie, and this was another point that Marie made that I was just like, yes. When she said, is the reason why you didn't cast me because people were going to ask, because it would like essentially take away your shine. People were going to say, oh, was this based on you? Yes. And then people would ask, oh, I wonder whose story it actually is. Is it Marie's? I thought that was the best point that she made, and one of the best points that she made in the movie, and I was proud of her. And also, like going back to the thank you thing at the very end, if you notice, after she says that whole monologue, I just want you to say thank you for doing this, thank you for doing that, and she lists all of these things. And at the end, after she's done saying that, what does he say? I love you. He still doesn't say thank you. Proves her point again.
He said in the morning.
Marie.
I think like I definitely, because I also like the point that Malcolm says, because I've lived this both in person and seen it, where when she's like, why didn't you cast me? He's like, you didn't want me to cast you. She's like, I wanted you to cast me. I'm like, yeah, but what you want in your head isn't always what you say. Like, especially when you're creative. Like, I've had moments where I've wanted things from directors, from producers, from actors, but I was too afraid to say it. So I didn't say it. Didn't mean I didn't hurt. It didn't still hurt when I didn't get it. Like, I've wanted jobs that I didn't get and it still hurt. But at the same time, I never, like, looking back on it, I never pushed myself to actually try to get it. I just wanted them to hand it to me. And I feel like that point was very on point, especially because Malcolm is a director. And I've had that experience as a director for some of my short films where I've had actors who maybe they are good actors. I've seen them in like in, being with students, you all kind of share actors. And I've seen them in other people's stuff and they were great. But when they auditioned for my thing, they were mediocre. So I didn't give them a chance because from my perspective, well, you're not really like, yeah, sure, you're an actor, but you're not what I'm looking for. Unbeknownst to me, they had it in them to be what I was looking for, but they didn't provide that when they had the chance. And I feel like Marie's the same way, is that it's buyer's remorse, that she didn't really try. Like, see, reading between the lines of who she is based off this conversation, how passive aggressive she can be, I'm betting like that she didn't really try, that he's not lying on that. But she probably assumed I'm your girlfriend. And I've been like, and then I experienced this. I assumed you would just give it to me. And I like, so it's like, there's interesting nuances in this conversation that you can derive. And that's just one assumption. For all I know, I could be completely wrong. And
I think that's where that context is needed, because it's like, okay, did he offer her the role or did he not? Did he wait for her to ask the role, or was, I think that is where the context is needed for certain parts and where we're only getting half the story. So we're like, well, what are you yelling about? Is it because he didn't offer you it, or because you didn't even bother to audition for the role and you assumed, or you did audition and it wasn't, the 100% that he had expected from you?
Well, I think it's the latter. I think she did audition because one of my other favorite points in the movie was when she has the knife and she's wigging out, and she's like essentially looking like she's about to threaten his life or her own life, and then it's all a ruse and she's acting. She's like, look, that's what authenticity looks like. And then he's like, well, damn, why didn't you do that in the audition?
But that's what makes me think that she didn't try, because now she's into it to do it to prove him wrong. And she's dedicated to that.
I mean, she just wants to stab him.
But it's like when you're just there to just
Maybe it's the
audition.
real desire to actually want to stab the man that finally produced it. Because,
Maybe.
you got to admit, Jonathan, as an actor, sometimes it's something that has to trigger you into making you fully go into that scene. That anger, that fury in her probably was what finally jump started that, authenticity style of hers.
Well, it's especially because I think about, like, when it comes to trauma, just because you experience trauma doesn't, and this is a thing that this is the point that Malcolm said that I really identified or resonated with as a writer, was when he's like, everybody wants authenticity, but that's not really what they want. What they want is the illusion. They want art. They want creativity that's under the guise and illusion of authenticity. Because there's a lot of people who, like, for example,
Sorry,
like,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, like, if just
She did a
pulling from
fun
my
hand
own.
motion.
Have you guys ever seen? You've seen Arrested Development, right?
I haven't, but
No.
Yeah, there's like, it's a old show. It got really worse once Netflix bought it. Just one brother's a magician, and the other brother's like, "Oh, you're doing a trick," and he's like, "It's an illusion, Michael." Sorry, I just kept hearing that. Go on, continue.
but like, pulling from my own life, like, I had my own bouts with depression, suicidal thoughts, whatever. And that experience, that it'll stick with me forever. I'll definitely always have that in my mind, in my heart, like, in who I am. However, if you asked me to star in a movie about my life, I probably can't act that often, act that experience in my life, because I'm not an actor. I'm not trained in that. Even though it'll be authentic because I experienced it, but it won't be authentic to an audience because they're not watching, you know, your life. They're watching a representation of your life. They're watching a reenactment, more or less. And
But
so
Marie was an actor.
yes, but Marie, like you said, Marie is never, like, even she said, like, you're the only one that would make any roles that I could play. And if you're an actor, that is bad. Like, if you're an actor, like a real actor, it doesn't matter who's writing the script. What matters is your performance. Now, you can get a bad script and that could weigh you down. But if you're a really good actor, you can read a script, see the challenge, know what you like, figure out what'll work for you. If you're a dramatic actor, all right, this is this character, this is their background. Let me analyze, let me do some research, let me find out maybe what my angle is going to be on playing this character. How am I going to play it? How am I going to hold my jaw? All these things go swirl through your head, which, Jonathan, I'm sure these things swirl through your head when you play characters, of like trying to fit. It's like a puzzle almost, of like trying to figure out how I'm going to best portray this person that I have to play. And if you're an actor, it shouldn't be, well, my husband's a director now, and so therefore I have I have first dibs on all of his characters. It's like, no, sometimes you're not the best person. Boyfriend. You know who's proven that? Mila Jovovich, whose husband is Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson is not Wes Anderson.
Tim Burton's wife.
Paul W.S. Anderson. Thank you. Paul W.S. Anderson is not a great director, and I don't think Mila Jovovich is the best actor for his projects. But why is she in them? Because she's married to the man, and so he's going to cast her in everything.
Oh, yeah, and Tim Burton.
Yeah,
and
Tim
Helena
Burton.
Bonham Carter.
Tim Burton's the same way.
Yeah.
And are they always the best person for that role in their respective movies? Not always.
I don't know. She kind of fits the bill a lot.
Helena Bonham Carter, it fits more
she's
his
weird
aesthetic.
and yeah.
Right.
But even still,
I think divorced.
No, I don't think so. I think they're still together.
Yeah, I
don't know.
Anyway.
But nonetheless, what I'm saying is that I understand where he's coming from. There's a lot of points that Malcolm makes that I understand where he's coming from. A lot of people might say, like, he's a jerk, which he is. And a lot of points in this argument, he's definitely a jerk. At the same time, though, I also see Marie's faults too. I don't think she's like, because I know everyone's going to be every Marie moment on YouTube is going to be Yas Queen, like every 5 seconds, because she's showing this black man what the deal is. But the reality is that she's not a good person either. They're both terrible people in different ways. Marie carries her shame and insecurity with her at all times, to the point where she's unable to love not only herself, but also accept love from somebody else. And Malcolm's so wrapped up in his own world, his own idea of what creativity and productivity and consumption of media is, that he's very blind to anybody else's needs, their lack of his time, his love, his concern, all of these things. He's a narcissist and he sucks. But
So in the end, they're just both terrible people.
at least from my perspective, I'm
I
sure
could say
someone
that
might
now.
might watch it and they'd be like, "No, they're just confused and misunderstood."
No, I get what you mean about trauma, because like I've had everything you have, and as well as like drug abuse. And if there was ever a movie about my life, one, I wouldn't want it. I don't want people to know what I've been through, because there's also so much more worse stuff. Um, but also, yeah, I don't think I could act in it, because when you're living through something, it always feels more darker than it may actually be. And when you're presenting it through a film, things get changed to what you used to, to what you experience. So it's like, no, this needs to be, darker. I was really in a darker place. Or, oh, no, this wasn't a dramatic scene. This was literally my last Tuesday. Why are you making so much emphasis on it? So I think that is a lot of it too, where you're right. She couldn't be able to see it as a maybe a movie when it was her own life, because she might be comparing it too much. And there is in a struggle if somebody tries to play a movie about their own life, when it like comes to drug abuse and stuff like that, it's like, oh yeah, no, I remember doing that, but that was like my Tuesday. Why are you making it such a dramatic scene of when I fell asleep with my head in the toilet? It sadly wasn't rock bottom for me. Don't make it rock bottom in the film. So like I get that point. But yeah, I think in the end they were just two really toxic people, to kind of, to me it was just kind of, yeah, two toxic people arguing. And I think my main issue, and probably I would have ended up enjoying the film a lot more had it not been so long. I think both their arguments had this weird validation in them, but also you're just both insane.
I can see the time thing, because after I watched it, because I didn't know how long it was gonna be, and after I watched it, I was like, oh, it felt like it was longer than it actually was. That might be my, like, one of my very few critiques on the movie, is that maybe it was stretched out a little bit towards the end, but I do think that those ending moments were important. And I did like those two beats of the why didn't you cast me, and like the whole thank you
No,
thing.
I agree with you that the ending moments were very important. I think it's the other
Some
parts
of the
of the
stuff in the
movie.
middle.
Yeah, the meat in the middle could have definitely been trimmed a little bit. No, I think you're
Especially
absolutely agree with you.
the
Especially that
critic
one.
scene is the one where I think it kind of takes space,
The
because it's the
monologue where he's reading the
yes,
review and he's just ranting on it.
when he's talking about all of the filmmakers or whatever, that's when I started to notice the length of the film. When he's like, "Did so and so make this movie, or because they wanted to do whatever? No, it's because of this. Did so and so?" And I was just like, "I get it. You're a filmmaker. You know old movies. Can we move on?" Like, like I was very much like Marie, where it's just like, you got a good review. Can you please sit down somewhere? Like, I am so tired of hearing this monologue. Like when you started, I was kind of with you, but now we're hitting like the 10-minute mark. Nobody should be having no 10-minute monologue rant when they got a good review. Like,
The
if
thing
you
that
got
I
a
did
bad
like
one,
about
all
that
right.
though, the thing that I did like about that though, is it could have been so easy to make it in the movie a bad review. And I felt like that could have been, 9 out of 10 movies would have made that choice. He would have gotten a bad review. He would have gotten upset. That would have started another argument for them. But instead, they went the other way. He got a really good review. He was ranting for X, Y, and Z reasons, and she was just in the background laughing at, or in the foreground laughing at him. Um, so I thought it kind of broke it up. It was a little bit long, but I think that was intentional to make the audience maybe seem like, okay, maybe to even make the audience like fed up with him at that point. Like, okay, this dude is going
I
off
mean, that is
for way too
a
long.
good point. I did get fed up with him, but it was also, I think you're right. It was a good choice to go with a good review because it was like, well, you got a good review. Why didn't the argument end there? Or why didn't he move on? But you can kind of see where his selfishness keeps playing in because even though he got a good review, he also wants to argue too. I want to jump back. You said you had a few criticisms. What are the other ones, Jonathan? We know our
M-
issues. What's
Me,
yours? What
no,
did you not like?
well, I think
You
I
said
said
there was a few.
no. I said one out of the very few.
Well, what were the other few?
Well, I think the length of the movie in general, it felt a little long to me, but it actually wasn't long in theory. So I think maybe cutting a little bit of that fat in the middle would have been nice. Also, my other thing that I was thinking about as I was watching the movie was just a logistics thing. When you get home, the first thing you do is take off your clothes and get into more comfortable outfits. They sat up in these clothes for however long they were in this house, and just especially him, he was in his like suit into couldn't be me. So that was my other thing.
I've done that, so I can't hold you. I've had moments where I've just sat in my like dress clothes for a while, just chilling.
Why? Well, women automatically you walk through the door, bras off.
Well, it's different
So,
because like
and
for
for like
for
me
women, I
personally,
understand because heels, an uncomfortable dress, maybe or whatever.
right?
For men,
But
we're wearing a shirt and pants. Like all you
do
gotta do is
y'all not
untuck
take
the
off?
shirt,
Do y'all
take
not
off the
take off your
shoes.
shoes when
Yeah, and he
you?
didn't take off his shoes
Neither
for
of
the
them did.
entire
Now I take
movie.
off my shoes. I don't like
Yeah.
dress shoes are uncomfortable for me. Like after I get home from church, I'm kicking off them shoes.
Right.
Like
So
this
yeah,
Stacey
no, that's a
Adams
good
got to
point.
go.
That's a good point. They did stay in full wear for quite some for most of the movie, and it's like, well, those shoes are uncomfortable. Those
I think
all those clothes are like really stiff.
that's why I say this is like a play. In fact, literally, when Zendaya gets in like the panties and the shirt, I was like, all right, now we're in act 3. And I only said that because every act they have a different costume change. At first, she's in the dress, he's in the
Suit.
suit. Then second act, he's taken the suit jacket off, he's rolled his sleeves up, now he's got his tie, and she's in the bathtub. Third act, she's got her panties and wife beater on. He's now like unbuttoned his shirt a little
Why
bit.
doesn't he go change? Because there's plenty of times for him to change too.
Mhm.
Like, why is
He's not in the
I
mood. Plus, he don't
I
want to go in the
assume
bedroom. Marie's in there, and he's mad at her.
she's like in the tub.
That's still
Also,
the
like,
bedroom.
isn't dress pants uncomfortable for you guys?
No,
They're
well, it
actually
depends.
pretty
Yeah, they're
comfortable
pretty comfy.
because they're
Pretty
like
comfy.
loose. They're not
Mhm.
well, depending on
It depends on the cut. Yeah.
yeah.
I hate men's fashion. Even
And
your
they're
dress wear
softer.
is comfy.
They're more comfortable than jeans. Dress pants are more
Yeah.
Are
comfortable
you
than jeans.
serious?
They're more
Yeah.
comfortable than jeans, but the
So
problem
your
is
formal wear is
Have
all more comfortable?
so
it's
have you ever worn like
comfortable but
slacks?
loose. If the
No.
breeze comes through, you're gonna be cold that whole night.
No, women's slacks are super uncomfortable. They're tight around the butt area and don't have pockets.
It's mostly the shirt. I'd say for me, the shirt and tie and the upper wear. The lower
It's
wear is fine.
yeah, because you can't really stretch. You
Yeah,
can't really like flex your
you're
arms.
pretty
You're very
constricted.
constricted. Yeah.
And it gets
Reflex,
hot.
something might pop out. You guys can't move your shoulders. That's a big issue. I hate men's fashion.
Um,
Screw you
kind
all.
of switching
What
gears a
else?
little bit. So
What
one
else was
thing
other than the clothing? What was another critique you had about the film, Jonathan?
I didn't really have too many critiques about it. Like as you guys are talking, there have been points when I've been like, okay, yeah, I can see that, but nothing where I'm like, yeah, I wasn't really on board with this aspect of it. Maybe as I marinate on it, because I did watch it today. So maybe as I marinate on it and think about it, I'm like,
See, and that's what happened to me because I watched it on Friday, but I had all day today to like really think about it and process it and analyze like what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. And that list of what I didn't like was stacking up. Um, that being said, do I think this is like an awful movie? No. I think it's fine. And again, I feel like this is one of those things where it was written quick. 2 actors were hired pretty quick because he already knew Zendaya.
well, the thing is, so do you know
You
the
know,
story behind it?
no. Well,
So
I know that they were about to film season 2 of Euphoria, and then they got shut down literally like the next day.
I
yes,
am aware
so
that they wanted to film in Zendaya's house, but they couldn't get the filming permits.
well, so this was basically Zendaya's idea. She reached out to Sam Levinson, who is the creator of Euphoria, and she said, "Hey, I want to do something while Euphoria, we can't do Euphoria, and while COVID is happening and everything, can we do something safe?" And so he said, "Bet," and he wrote the script in like I think a week,
See,
and
it shows
and
because
they.
I feel like this is
I knew you were gonna say that.
not to
I
say
think it's just a heavy
quote the
monologue, and
script.
I don't think it's even the dialogue, it's the monologues. There's quite a bit of monologues.
Yeah, not to
And
insult
yeah,
the script. I don't think it doesn't feel rushed. It just feels very quick. Like this, I've written scripts like this
It
where it
feels
feels
like
like
they didn't go through the final cleanup.
yeah,
well,
But
so he wrote the script, and then they filmed, COVID safe in this big mansion in the hills in California, I believe. Just the two of them, and a lot of Euphoria people worked on this project. So this is basically like a
yeah, because they were
Euphoria
ready to
side
go. They
project.
just
Yeah,
couldn't film the show they
they
were
just
hired
needed
to
something to
do.
do.
including Labyrinth, who does the music for
Yeah.
Euphoria. So I thought that was a cool
Also,
idea.
I'm glad you brought up the music because there's one point where Lil Sim's Selfish plays in the background while Malcolm's talking, and I was like, that is very on the nose. Shame on you, Euphoria. Like, all right, and you with how good the music in Euphoria is, and being very not being being very vague, but then once you really dig into the lyrics, you'd be like, oh, that was a perfect song for this moment. Selfish is like the most on the nose song they
Well,
could
there's
have.
that other
This
on the nose song that she plays directly to him, where she's like, where the song, I forget how the song goes. It's like "Leave Your Man" or something like
Yeah,
that.
all the music.
it's a threat.
But yeah, I will say, you know what, and you know what's funny too. You bringing up Euphoria made me think of something because I had to analyze the main thing I was analyzing with this of why I don't like this as much as I like the Euphoria special episode with Rue or even the one with Jules. But I like the Rue one especially really well. I think that one is the best out of the two. And the reason why I came to when I analyzed it was because I was like, because the special episode and for Rue is just Ollie and Rue talking. That's it. And it's not even like they say anything that's like spoilers for the first season. They don't talk too much. The only thing they really talk about is Jules, but past that, they don't talk about a lot of the other characters. They don't talk about any of that stuff. But the reason it hits different, despite being an hour long conversation between two people in the same location, is because I have the whole season of Euphoria as context for why this conversation makes so much sense, why it hits the way it does. And with Malcolm and Marie, I don't have that. Like, I don't have all this context to make this impact, this feel like this argument, this almost nearly relationship ending argument, feel like it has weight. And I think that's, again, I hate to repeat myself, but that's I think that context is the one thing that would have made this movie feel a lot more invested, feel a lot more impactful for me. And maybe, I don't know, like, I mean, a piece of me did want to believe that Rue had changed her name, and because Rue's a drug addict, Marie is a former drug addict. So I'm like, maybe this is Rue all grown up, and she finally got clean, and now she's with Malcolm.
I was thinking about what Jonathan had said regarding that she was a young actress and like there was no reason really for like her to necessarily definitely work on her boyfriend's film when she has, she's kind of in this prime of young age. I think that energy of like why wouldn't you cast me in the film or like something like that would have played better if maybe he was a young, director and she was an older actress, or vice versa. She's a young actor trying to break in and he's like an older, director or writer. Kind of that imbalance of power in a relationship, but there wasn't really an imbalance there that was causing this like anger for them of not being in each other's work, because both of you are young starting out and entering this new world, and to, you know, try to be on with each other at all times why are you pointing getting closer to the camera, John?
Because I I have something along that point. So this was actually going to be my one, like my last question for you guys, or one of my last questions for you guys. So John David Washington is actually 35 years old, and Zendaya is 24, 35, I think, 35 or 36. And
No,
Zendaya
she's
is
26.
24.
Oh, you're saying Zendaya is 20.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
like
sorry.
the act,
She is 24. You're right.
those are the actors' ages, and a lot of controversy that came about this was the age difference, and people think that it's too much of a common theme where you get the older dude with the younger woman, and that just happens all the time. For me personally, I thought it fit in well with this because it I don't think it would have been as believable had he been a younger director, because I feel like in Hollywood, older, especially male directors, are rewarded more than younger ones are. So I feel like having that, and we see it in Hollywood all the time with the older dude and the younger woman. So I felt like it was natural and fit in this context. Some of these other times it doesn't, but in this world, I thought that it fit well.
I mean, but that's only like 8 years difference, right? Yeah, like 8 to 10. I actually don't think that's much of an age difference anymore. I watch Love Is Just a Number or something on Netflix, and that disturbed me so much. Oh my god, those are age differences. Those
I would
I'm
say
not okay.
for
I'm still
me,
traumatized by that.
their age.
Don't
Because I
watch
agree
it.
with.
Don't ever watch it.
I agree with you, Alex. That I think Granted, I don't know if like because I do also agree with your point, Jonathan. I don't think him being a much older director would have would have been maybe what would have made that point in her argument hold more weight, but definitely if he was more successful,
Yeah.
because the fact that this is like his first actual like major success is one of those things where it's like, if he was more successful, then I could see her point of being like, okay, you were a successful director, you've made how many great movies, and you haven't cast me in any single one of them, but I want to be an actress. Versus, all right, like I'm still trying to make my first great film, and you want me to take a chance because you're my girlfriend to
But
be
you're
in a
an
movie,
actress too, yeah.
you've never acted in anything. The few times you have tried to go out for auditions, you bombed them. So your track record doesn't give me confidence that like a film I'm trying to make, like my magnum opus, this is going to be my Oscar winner. You want me to take a chance just because you're my girlfriend and you live this life. That doesn't mean
And
it's
because you
just,
hijacked my story.
but even then, I do agree with his point where he's like, it's not your
I like how
story.
we
It is
Jonathan
the
go
mix.
against Jerome. I love that.
It's not your story. It's like, and I
It
feel
is
him
her
on
story.
that because it's a part of her story, but the whole thing isn't hers. And for
Well,
her to own
Well, the
all of it,
core of it, and he even admits
yeah.
it, the core of the story is her.
And
for sure.
And
he
that's
was
why
trying to say the bathtub scene. He was trying to make it seem like it was such like the story was this like 10 like less than like 1% based off of her story, and it was actually based off all these other women that he had relationships with.
which, by
But
the
when he
way, in an argument with your significant other, partner, whatever you want to call them,
yes
do not bring up the other relationships you have
Yeah,
had.
that
You're
was a
just
low bar. He hit her
asking to
below the
get
belt,
like
way below
kinky.
the belt.
I was like, damn, why are you
Kinky.
doing that? Like, you want to get drowned in that tub, don't you? It's not
He was hitting
helping.
her. That's why I was like, he's hitting her all below the belt. Now, even I have limits. Like, I'm
That's
not gonna
not
do
below the
that.
belt.
Like,
That's like,
yeah,
I'm trying to get murdered.
that's just
exactly.
he just
It's
that
not
that
below, yeah.
that's
and
him
and
just trying to punch straight for the ovaries. Like it's just like
He's,
he just
he's
and he
trying to
was
get killed.
he was saying that, but when he would bring up every single other example, when anyone in the movie would talk about the movie itself, it would all be related to her story. So the math just wasn't math, and the things weren't adding up when he told her his spiel.
But here's the thing, and this is the major thing of like, yes, it is your story, but that doesn't mean you're the best to tell it. And that's the other thing.
Yeah, but you
Just
can't go
because
and gaslight and be like, "Oh no, it's not." When literally
that's
any point you're
true.
making about the movie is
Relates to me.
the most major points you are making about your own film are connected to this person, and then you're trying to claim it's not this person, and it's just like then you bring in other people, and it's just like, what are you trying to do then? What is your end goal?
That's true. And I that's the part where I was like, why can't you just, because in my own head, I was saying this. I was like, if I was having this argument, I would just be honest with her and tell her that from my perspective as a filmmaker, I don't think you're best to tell your own story. That would hurt her feelings, I'm sure. But I think that's what he thought, is that she's not the better storyteller to tell her own story. Because even if you're an actor and you didn't write the words, you're still a storyteller in a way, because your acting helps inform what this story is about, helps inform the dialogue, helps inform all of these things you're supposed to feel in this moment in the movie or in the scene or whenever.
Yeah.
So it's like, so you're still a storyteller. I consider actors just as much storytellers as the person who writes the words on the page. And he didn't believe at the time that she could tell her story, help tell her own story. Granted, and then when she wanted to prove him wrong, then she got into it. But it's like, but like he said, why you do that in the audition? Where was that fire and urge to do that beforehand when you had the chance? And that's why I'm like, I get some hints that Marie is gaslighting him a bit and being like, no, I could have totally done it. Okay, then why didn't you?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, why didn't you? I would have given it to you if you had auditioned. He's like, I asked you to audition. You didn't do it. And you can't have buyer's remorse now and be like, well,
Or she did
if
do
I
it, but
had, if I
she
had,
wasn't completely,
right. It's like you weren't completely in there, you know?
Well, maybe he
Yeah.
should have given her a knife at the audition.
M-
Could have ended so much differently. It also depends on you have to the power of a certain scene in a film. It all depends on what they audition, what scene they're using. There's
Mhm.
like the basic scene where she's having a conversation. It may come off well, but in the more powerful scenes, he may not have seen that for her.
Mhm.
She could have also just read from a less powerful scene,
And
and
again,
and
this
he
is another thing where it's like we needed context because we don't know what sides she got to audition. We don't know
well, I
what
mean, it's all up to
material
the
was.
viewer
You
to
want
to
all of
speculate.
you
Yeah,
want us to
Yes,
be held.
Jonathan.
You want our
Yes.
hands to be held that much that you need the
it's
daggone
You know
sides from the
why? You know
audition.
why? Because I'll tell you another movie that's about living your dreams and not accomplishing them or accomplishing them based on how much time and effort you put into La La Land. La La Land, you don't get you don't see all the auditions Emma Stone ever did in that movie, her character, but you see enough to understand
but
why she is
I
the way she
think
is
the
when
whole
she
point
finally
of not
triumphs.
having that context is to really just see the argument as it is. And the
Right,
thing
True.
and
a
the thing
slice
is,
of
Nice.
life.
yeah,
That
and the
I
thing
see that
is,
point. That's fair.
Because
you
La La Land takes place over a period of time. This is over one night.
and it's also having that context in the background would give you a point to like, well, I'm going to side with Marie, I'm going to side with Malcolm, this or that. But it's really, you need to just look at the argument and see how they're interacting with each other, which is awful. They're both just trying to cut each other deeply with words, and it's just like, okay, not having this context, no, you both are actually just terrible with each other and really should just go see other people, or take some time alone or something.
Especially because they know each other's weaknesses. Because Malcolm knows he can hurt Marie by attacking her sobriety, by attacking her like
Her
personality. She
body.
knows her body, and she knows she can attack him by belittling his art and belittling his
And
talent.
picking on his self-centeredness, and this
Right.
self-pity he develops when reading the critiques. So yeah, it's that whole, you need to just look at the argument and genuinely see that these two should not really be together. They're trying to cut each other so deeply with words like this.
Mhm.
Context or not, this is a bad relationship and should not continue.
This feels like, if anything, this reminds me of Roman J. Israel Esquire. You ever seen that movie?
That's with Denzel Washington. I have not seen it
Nope.
yet.
That movie,
Speaking of
well,
and his son is in this.
Yeah, so it ties in. But in that movie has little to no plot, and but Denzel Washington's amazing in it
Is
because
it is it
it's
just like a slice of life movie?
it's like a slice of life of this character. Like something happens to this character. So I to say it's no plot is probably not entirely fair. Like there is a thing going on in that affects his character's life, but like after it happens in the very beginning of the movie, it's never really holds as much weight as it's just us watching this dude make a change in his life for a little bit, and then the movie ends. And it's like this feels like a really great character study. Like if I was watching a one-man show play of this, I would think it's brilliant. But because it's a movie, it it misses the basics to make a really good film versus what would make a really good one-man show, like character breakdown. And I feel like this movie's the same way. I feel like if I saw this on the stage, I would think this is the most brilliant thing ever. I would think the dialogue really flows really well. The like, especially because I could see these costume changes being really cool to do, like in the stage. I see where the act breaks are, where the intermission is, all that stuff.
Yeah, I
Because
kind
it's a
of thought that
Have
movie.
too. There should have been moments where I'm like, before like the tub scene, having it go all dark in the intermission style would have been like kind of visually pleasant, because you're right, it is seeming more and more like a play, especially with the monologues and stuff like that, where I'm just like, I would watch this definitely if it was a play, and there was an intermission and kind of these like moments where the scene would just go dark. And I think because it mimicked a play so much and there wasn't that moment of just like the scene cuts out, you didn't have a chance to let it settle. It just kept going. And with play likes, when you're trying to get something to settle in when you're watching it, you need that moment, that breath away from the characters too, as an audience member. And you didn't get that. It was just a constant fight to jumping to making out to fight to this weird like conversation about like nothing, a nothing argument, to like calm again to like this, and it's just like you don't get a break. You're just like, what is wrong with both of you? That's all I felt. I'm like, what is wrong with both of you?
Especially
I can
because
see.
that scene. Sorry, Jonathan. One last thing is just there's that like when after they make out or whatever, and they're like, and Malcolm's like, all right, I like what's happening. I'm gonna go to use the restroom quick. I'll be right back. And then Zendaya cries, and then as soon as Malcolm gets back, why didn't you cast me? And it's like that feels like I know what you're trying to do, but it feels awkward because literally 2 seconds ago you were making out and it was gonna go, just gonna get down, and now like, and just because you show one tear does not mean you flowed into the next scene because it feels very we're chopped. All right, now we're on this scene now. What? Wait, I got whiplash. Like, wait a minute, you can't just do that.
Okay,
It doesn't flow.
I can definitely see what you guys are saying about like I'd rather this be a play. Um and during the movie I was thinking, "Ooh, I'd like to see this as a play." But I would like I appreciate the film for the film, and if one day, who knows, it happens to turn into a play, I would appreciate that too. Have you ever seen Fences,
Yes.
the movie?
No.
Okay. Um, so that is also like it's kind of in this realm where it's just like it's a conversation that takes place in like mainly one place, and it's based on a play, and they're able to do things with actors that they normally wouldn't do with actors um in a stage setting, and with Malcolm and Marie, they were able to film in black and white. They were able to do things with the music and the camera angles that they wouldn't be able to do on stage. And I think that's what I appreciated um, about the filmed version rather than a staged version. I'd love to see a staged version as well, because I was thinking in my mind, okay, how would this be set up? And also, Jerome, you said that you love to
Just love
you
that quick tone change.
Jerome, you said that you think this would be the most brilliant thing if you saw it on stage, but you also said that you thought the writing was lacking. So which one is it?
I think the writing's lacking in the way it flows as a movie. As a play, as a theater production, this would be perfect because it would feel like the way I feel like it would flow perfectly for how a play is structured. Especially because I still remember Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was structured kind of the same way, where we're in this scene. All right, cut. Now we're onto this. We're with these characters and we're in this scene. Cut. Now we're back to these characters. Same location, technically same time period, but now they're having a different conversation completely. And we're going to get into another series of monologues.
But that
And
has
it's
like a
like,
million characters in it. Malcolm and Marie has two.
that's what I'm saying. That's why Malcolm and Marie doesn't quite work as Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, because we have in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, we have a lot of characters, we have a lot of perspectives to bounce off of. In Malcolm and Marie, it's just those two. And so it doesn't, and on top of that, we don't leave this house. We stay here the entire time. And so, like Alex was saying, there's no break from this conversation. It just feels like random scenes that are put together that are, yes, well written, well acted, but they don't mesh together. And that's the problem. That's where I think the writing's lacking. It's not so much in the dialogue, it's in the action notes. It's in the everything else that's in between that you don't see because, they're not going to say it because they're not going to speak the action notes. But that stuff's important too. And I always consider that when I'm thinking of like, is a script written well? It's not just about what's said, it's about what's not said.
Yeah.
That's just my answer.
That was your question, Jonathan. I was waiting for you to say something other than yeah.
No,
He actually made a good point.
Well, I was gonna say, I was gonna transition into our ending, but to that, I'll say that I guess like it brought out a nuanced in the sense that yes, they are in this one house. Yes, you are tired by the end because you're watching them in this one house, in this location, no breaks, watching them argue, watching them get back together again. But I think as the audience member, I think that's intentional in the fact that you're essentially supposed to be tired of it. You're supposed to feel like you are a part of this relationship, and by the end, you're emotionally drained and exhausted because you've been in this one house this entire time, and you've been fighting with these people for an hour 45 minutes plus. So I think that's what got me in the sense that I felt more emotionally like invested in it because I'm like, dang, these people like they just need to like get over it. So
Well,
I
here's
think
the
that's
thing.
yeah.
Sorry, here's the thing. I felt the bad side of that, where yes, I did feel exhausted, and yes, I did feel part of this relationship. But I felt like that friend who was invited over, but then you didn't know that your friend and his girl have been fighting this whole time, like behind the scenes, and she comes home and starting some stuff, and then he's like, you know what? Matter of fact, Keisha, let me tell you something, and they just start arguing, and you just have to sit there and act like you just like. You know what? I think I could beat the traffic. Let me just, no, you sit here. You going to listen to this because you need to understand. You know what? Tell her that one time. Tell her what I said. And you just like, I don't want to be a
I
part
think
of
my
it.
parking is about to expire.
Yeah, like, look,
I
Todd, I
know.
don't want to be a part of this conversation. You and Keisha can have this conversation without me being present. I don't need to. And it felt like I had to sit here and just wait for them two to be done before I could just leave the house and
I
go
think
pay my parking.
the
and just
whole
leave.
issue was that like I didn't get you, Jonathan, probably got more emotionally invested, which got you more emotionally exhausted, which put you more in the mind frame of the couple. I definitely did not get emotionally involved. I was just like, these two people are awful. So I was exhausted by the end. And you're right, that is a really good point. They made it that way so that you would feel the tiredness with them, especially at the end when it's just all like, just say thank you to me, and it's all like I love you, and it's just like, oh my god, tiredness of that. But I think because of the lack of emotional connection I had with the characters, I didn't feel that. All I felt was kind of this annoyance and tiredness at the end, where it's just like, both of you just shut up,
That's
both of you. I don't want to hear anything from either of you.
That's fair.
That being said, though, one thing and last thing I wanted to say though was that the whole our age thing. Just to go back to that real quick, when people are like, "Well, Zendaya is so young." One of the things John David Washington said in response to that was like, "No, like for me, especially the way we wrote this script, like I don't see a young girl. I see a woman because she's a woman. She's a grown adult." And he was like, "When you see this film, you'll see just how much of a woman she really is." And I wasn't sure what he meant by that. I was like, in what way? And what he meant was in the way of the dialogue. Like she holds her own in this conversation. In fact, a lot of times she's like really the one in charge of this relationship, a lot more than Malcolm is. And you feel it. Like for me, I was like, nah, like Zendaya is the woman in this relationship, but she gonna make sure you know that. Both
And also,
you,
there
Malcolm,
have
the
been
person, and this audience.
so many other films with such like the actors like the male is like 50 and the female is like 20 something. So like the fact that they're like barely 10 years apart is like really that's like
Right.
actually pretty common in today's relationship. Women also tend to just like older men because no offense to you two. Uh
Stability.
no, the lack of maturity males tend to have.
That's true. Yeah,
You
as
guys
well.
tend to mature less than slower than
Oh no,
Women
it's
females.
mature
not that we
faster than
mature
men
less.
do.
It's that we just don't care about doing dumb stuff. Like
I
we
think
just hit a
studies have
point
shown that
we
women
just
mature
don't care.
faster than men do.
Dumb stuff, dude. That's there you go. There's the
That's
maturity
what I'm
level right
saying.
there.
We'll just do like why you think there's so many videos of those dudes that'll get on, in full well they don't know how to ride no skateboard, but they're just like, "Nah, I'm gonna get on." What do you mean you gonna get on? You gonna break your head? Nah, it's
That's
fine. It's
another
fine.
reason women will go for older men is because there's a risk of your same age partner dying. Because
True.
sometimes I'll look at you guys, like look at men and be like, "How are you all so alive with the stupid decisions you have made?" I've seen a man put a ladder on top of a ladder to reach a high spot. It's like, no, 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 no.
See, that's not a man thing though. That's just being an idiot. You can't. That has no gender.
Charles Darwin's
That's
trying
just
to take
being
out
dumb.
the male gender for a reason. All right, you all
I also
Darwining
like that
yourself.
aspect to the. Okay, I'll
Although
let's.
Jonathan, I think you'd survive. Jerome, you're on
Thank you.
thin ice half the time.
Please, all right. I already know I'm insane. I'll take it.
I didn't say anything
So
about
with the
insanity. Go on, Jonathan.
Darwin Awards, how did we get here? Um,
Males.
when so I'll start off with my rating this time. I don't know if I've ever started off with my rating. I usually ask you guys first. But I rate this. I'm gonna give it an A. I'm gonna give it an A. It's not an A plus because of those few things that I mentioned, but and I also, if I gave it an A plus, I feel like you guys would torch my new computer down. But I'm gonna give it an A. And one of the things, dang, I forgot what I was gonna say in response to your point, but one of the things that I was gonna say was I can 100% see drama schools for the next however many so years using the scenes and monologues in this movie for
Mhm.
years
I
to
thought
come.
that too, actually, especially Zendaya's ones. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, she went through such various rays of emotion through this, from like playing, I don't want to say playing the victim, but being the heartbroken girlfriend to being like, I'm going to stab him, to being like the soft part of her was exposed. So I can see her monologues definitely being used
Yeah, I
in
think she'll
future acting
be
classes.
she'll be nominated more than he will, than John David Washington.
Oh, prediction.
I think she'll be nominated. I don't think he'll be nominated.
Do you think she'll be nominated for an Oscar?
Who knows? It depends on what comes out this year because a lot of movies got pushed back to be in this year from last year to this year. Nothing that was like Oscar caliber, I don't think. But you never know. You never know.
While you're at it, Jerome, what is your grade and reason for giving it?
I would like honestly, I think overall, because I'm thinking about like all the movies I've ever given grades for, both on this podcast and not, and analyzing that on my scale, I think I give which a lot of people are going to be mad at me, but I'm okay because I'm going to make it
Don't do it for the
really
people.
quick.
Do it for you.
No, I'm giving this a D plus. I am giving this a D plus. I'm sorry. Uh, see, I told you. But the reason why, I've said people gonna be mad because they'll be like, you giving this a D plus, but you gave Wonder Woman 1984 a C minus. What's that about? First of all, I admit I was too late on
Look,
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman
Let's
actually
go.
gave what it promised, though.
That's fair. But I actually am making an addendum right now. Wonder Woman 1984 is also getting a D minus. There, I
Oh,
fixed it.
shut up.
But
No.
anyway, but it's getting a D plus from me because while yes, the cinematography, gold standard, fantastic. Um, with the black and white especially, awesome. The performances in here, really good. But I feel like this film needed to cook longer. Like the yes, the monologues are great. Yes, the dialogue is um well written, but it feels jumbled. It feels like we are just watching you were tired by the end of this because you've been fatigued at how long this movie is, by how long they've kept on this one point of this argument for so long. And then on top of that, the scenes that feel like they just pad out the length, like with the criticism stuff, like when there's a whole scene with John David Washington fighting the oxygen like for
Punching the
10
air.
rounds, and
Or
it's like,
eating mac and
I
That's
cheese.
get
gonna
it
be a gift.
for
That is gonna be a
probably
gift.
that's gonna
Punching
be a
the air.
meme of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, when you've been waiting at the line at the DMV and find out you got to get you need a new form. So it's like when you check the mail and you don't have no stimulus check. but at the same time, it's like there's so much stuff that happens that I'm just like, I'm not invested. And I feel like, and the biggest thing is, I feel like this movie needed more, like, if it wasn't going to add more scenes, which they couldn't because of COVID, which is fine. But if you weren't going to add more scenes, I think this needed to go through a few more rewrites, maybe to really analyze, like, what is the best way to tell this, like, to first establish this relationship before we get into the fights. Because the first bit of this relationship, before we get into the argument of this relationship, is all from Malcolm's perspective. We have Malcolm doing a whole monologue where he talks about himself. Then he's trying to make the sexy times with Zendaya. She ain't having it. And then they get into the fight. We don't even know what how Marie feels about Malcolm before we even start getting into their argument. So there's no establishment of that relationship before we even get into what is going to be the plot, more or less, of this entire film. And that's an imperative part that feels lacking the whole time, the whole hour and 45 minutes. So for that aspect, for all of those negatives, I feel like they pile over the positives for me personally. And that's why I give it a D plus. So, come at me if you will. No disrespect to Zendaya.
I like the glare.
Let me
that
log
Jonathan
into
has.
my
I
burner
think you're incredible,
account. Let me
Zendaya.
I
log
knew
into
you
my
had a burner account. I knew
Bullied
you would.
the first ones to die at the first ones to die. Alex, what are your thoughts and your grade?
Well, I still hated it. I wasn't a fan. But I'll actually give it a C. Mainly because I think it's one of those movies you do have to watch to see it if you like it or not. It's going to be hard to critique or listen to the critiques because of such a mixed review. There's literally on this podcast alone one who hates it, one who loved it, one who was like in the middle. I think it has such a range that you really yourself has to watch it. And you're right, with the cinematography, the well done lighting, the black and white, it is a visually beautiful film, I think. And just on that aspect alone, I would suggest watching it. The monologues kind of drag sometimes, but there were powerfulness in it, and the toxicity of the relationship kind of was sometimes too much, but also you could see so much of both their point of views. So I definitely think, like, if you want to see how you enjoy it, definitely watch it. There are beautiful parts of the film. I'm not going to deny that. I just didn't enjoy it. And I think it's mostly due to the fact that I didn't make the emotional connection or the personal connection to either one of them. Right off the bat, I'm just like, both of you are just terrible individuals. But you can make that connection, to either one. You can have that feeling, because I did see, again, points between Malcolm, and I did see points between Marie, and like I got what they were trying to say. And I think the lack of context helps in a weird way, in just like you're needing to watch this argument. It's not about what happened before, and it's not about if they're going to really make it till tomorrow morning. It's about right there and then, and you need to focus on right there and then. And I have a lot of problems with staying in the right there and then. So I think it's definitely a movie you do need to watch on your own and see if I'm going to enjoy it or not, because I think this is definitely a movie with the minimalist of it, and the quick writing, and just being two actors in a film. It's just something, if it's your taste or not, what it comes down to. So.
And it's a good point you brought up about, one person loves it, one person's mad, one person hates it. Because I think this is the first time, at least in a minute, that we've all had like vastly different stances on a movie. We haven't been just either somewhere in the middle, or two people have one opinion and one person has an opposite. And that's why we love movies, because everyone has a unique.
Although you
taste.
did almost fall out of your chair when I said I hated it.
I
You
did.
went
This
back.
thing, this
We saw
background nearly toppled over.
I will say, what the thing to piggyback off of that is, I've also thought about, like, well, none of us have had a relationship like Malcolm and Marie's, as far as like, been dating someone and that's our relationship. So maybe for someone that is their relationship, or a past relationship of theirs, this movie like speaks to them, because they're like, no, I've experienced this. Like, this is real. Like, I've experienced this relationship.
I think the last person I dated was like 10 years ago. I was like 19. That was enough.
I had you don't even want to know. I had a Malcolm and Marie situation. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, really? We're gonna need to cut this podcast down.
All right, second episode, part 2, Malcolm and Marie review.
We get
version.
We get to know Jonathan's personal life.
With that being said, I think it's a good time to end it. Wow, we went long. I feel like we're just trying to beat our own personal record at this point every week.
Nothing will beat villains and anti-heroes. I think that's like definitive.
Yeah.
I just like how well we did with the SpongeBob.
Well, you know what though?
I got heated.
Black History Month is going strong, because this week was Malcolm and Marie. Next week is let me look at my notes. I want to make sure I get it right, but I think I got it. You do it, Jonathan. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say.
Oh,
I was about to be like, we'll have to do all like Latin or Hispanic content for Hispanic Heritage Month. That's not until like September.
Dang it! And we already did the Selena review. Maybe the Selena season 2 will come out by then.
I thought it was in October.
I think it's mid-September through mid-October. It's like not a month.
We don't even get a month.
It's
split.
It's a month, but it's like throughout 2 months. So you technically get 2 months.
Not really, man.
But next week, tune in for yet another new movie review for Judas and the Black Messiah. Now, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, that one.
I'm excited for this one.
I'm excited to see that one.
So,
And we might have another special guest if she's willing. Again.
This is true. So, tune in next week. You don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss us talking about Judas and the Black Messiah. I don't know what else to say.
Anyway.
All right. With that being said, you can find us at The First Ones to Die on all social media platforms. You can email us, thefirstones2die@gmail.com. And where can we find you both at, Alex?
I am on Instagram, living my okayest life. And I mainly run the TikTok account for The First Ones to Die, where I post little tidbits of our podcast and just random videos when I'm super bored.
My favorite video from that TikTok account is the very, one of the first ones that posted where you have Tevin crashing through the standee.
That was just a great day. He went straight through that standee.
For more information about that, watch our old Tales Behind the Usher Station 2 episode when we were behind the Usher Station, where we talk about that.
I hit the Thor Ragnarok standee with a hammer multiple times. That's how he was able to go through it. I made a hole. Jerome, where can we find you?
You can find me at Not Jerome Red on Instagram, and also uh, it will happen. I'm gonna put some content on RoboZoom Media as well. You can follow me there as well. You can find out all about my other artistic ventures. Much like Malcolm, I too am a filmmaker. Unlike Malcolm, I'm not as narcissistic about it. So check out
We'll see what
RoboZoom
time.
Media.
You're gonna find your Marie and have a similar.
Oh no, listen.
ruling?
If I had a girl like Marie, we would be fighting every night. First of all, the
Jonathan,
mac and cheese alone
Jonathan,
would
where
be
were
an
you?
issue.
You know what? Then you
can
make your own
find
damn
me
dinner.
at-
Jonathan, go.
You can find me at mac and cheese. You can find me at Jonathan Keys. My name, Jonathan Keyes. And that is it for today. We will see you next week for Judas and the Black Messiah. And until then, have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Later.